If there's not an old oil tank corroding beneath your backyard, chances are good there's one in your neighborhood, and insurance won't necessarily cover the astronomical cost of removing it. Tonight, the second installment of our three-part investigation into a danger beneath the soil. It's a collaboration with a dozen content partners, public radio stations and private news organizations, both Rutgers and Montclair State University, facilitated by the Center for Investigative Reporting. Brenda Flanagan investigates toxic New Jersey.
It's caked in clay, but looks solid enough as the backhoe gently hoists Joan Fitzgerald's 500-gallon fuel oil tank out of the ground and into the air and deposits it on her front lawn in Clifton. But back in the excavated hole, dark residue stains the dirt, and the odor of petroleum's heavy above the pit.
I can smell it.
And you can actually even see it if you look far down there.
Environmental consultant Steve Rich chops at the clay. Underneath, holes appear in the 66-year-old steel. Daylight shines through some that are big as dimes.
Those are big holes.
Yeah. There was, I think, unfortunately, quite a bit of oil which might have come out.
I don't know if I could talk to you right now, really. I'm upset. I've been upset all week, and now this puts the icing on the cake.
Joan's tank is only one of an estimated 100,000 fuel oil storage tanks buried underground across New Jersey, ranging in size from a couple hundred gallons to monsters holding thousands of gallons.
How often do you see something like this?
Quite a bit. Maybe 50% of the old tanks, they do have holes. They do leak. Because they've been in the ground a long time, that's why.
Serious cases where plumes of contamination ride groundwater channels far beyond the tank pits require extreme excavation.
It was pretty bad. As you could see, the house had to be put on piles and beams to remediate the soil.
He figures cleanup will run a couple $100,000. Insurance might cover half. The DEP's notified whenever a critical level of contamination is detected and gets a technical report when it's remediated. Homeowners then get a letter certifying cleanup's complete, and they can't sell the property without it, he says, because banks won't offer mortgages on homes with underground oil tanks. The grant money New Jersey set aside to help compensate homeowners for fuel oil tank removal can't keep up with demand, with a waiting list 1,700 names and 4 years long. So
Some are waiting in and out, and some are walking away from their homes.
walking away.
They walk away from their homes. It's they just don't have the equity in the property to ultimately pay for remediation and get it cleaned up.
And they're really like the Wild West. You know, you just have these tanks out there that invariably at some point in time are going to leak.
Environmental attorney Stu Lieberman points to New Jersey's 2005 fuel oil tank exclusion policy. It lets insurers opt out of paying for damages from tank removal unless homeowners can prove that oil leaked before 2005.
It's a sin. It's really a crime that the Division of Banking and Insurance allowed the insurance companies in New Jersey to stop covering these things.
The upshot is that there are many homeowners that don't have coverage and don't know that they don't have coverage.
New Jersey's Fuel Merchants Association questions whether lack of DEP oversight on oil tank removals is driving up costs, especially if an insurer is picking up part of the bill to fix those oil leaks that occurred more than a decade ago.
The costs just seem to be a lot more in the insurance world than they might otherwise need to be.
The costs that they sometimes incur for these remediations, it's really a market-driven process. And that's why the costs become so extensive in some cases.
The DEP says regulations permit industrial cleanups to leave behind small amounts of contaminants in the soil. But for home sites, banks and buyers demand much more stringent remediation standards.
There's no ability to obtain a permit to leave any contamination behind.
To help save cleanup costs, the DEP is now considering a controversial fix to relax some cleanup regulations for homeowner tanks of less than 2,000 gallons. Meanwhile, Senator Jennifer Beck's sponsoring legislation that would require insurance companies to start offering fuel oil tank liability policies to homeowners again.
If they don't want it, they have to sign and certify a letter back to the insurer that they don't want it. Otherwise, the homeowner's insurance company must provide it automatically.
Homeowner's insurance was intended to be there for the structure and for your belongings inside. It wasn't there to be a hazardous waste plan.
The insurance lobby says those policy changes and oil tank exclusions were very clear, and insurers do not want to walk it all back a decade later.
At the heart of this, it's an environmental issue. It's an issue of maintenance, it's an issue of warranty, and it's an issue of making sure that you've replaced these tanks.
Back in Clifton, Joan Fitzgerald just heard cleanup will cost $75 grand to remove 125 tons of contaminated dirt. But she says she unwittingly made a mistake by converting to natural gas heat before she removed the oil tank, and that voided her insurance policy.
Do you think State Farm's going to help pay for it?
No,
Why not?
because I just don't think they will. Yeah.
State Farm told NJTV News that it's actively working with Ms. Fitzgerald about her claim. Now, across New Jersey, underground storage tanks and contaminated soils from old gas stations and dry cleaners lurk underground. You might be living right next to one and not even know it. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. In the newsroom, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJTV News.